It's Wednesday. It's time to wake up. You were born to be rich, abundant, and successful. Wake Up Wednesday starts right here, right now. When I went out looking for a topic for April, I came across Stress Awareness Month. And as I was looking at one site, I found that Dr. Mort Orman was on it. In fact, we know each other from a program we do together, and we are in a compilation book together. So I am going to give you a spoiler alert. The cover was released. The book will be released in about a month. So here is the book cover, and you will most likely be hearing from one of us to participate in purchasing the book. So I know I'm going to be reaching out to people with an opportunity to purchase the book, and I assume that Mort will also. So as we continue on with this month, I decided to reach out to Dr. Mort because I knew him. So Dr. Mort, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in Stress Awareness Month.
Well, thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. And yes, April is Stress Awareness Month, and I'm an internal medicine physician, and I practiced medicine for 23 years, and then I spent 15 years as a corporate medical director, as a health and wellness medical director. But for most of my career in medicine, I had an interest in stress and in helping people get rid of stress and anger and other stress-related problems. So the way I got involved with Stress Awareness Month originally is that I created it back in 1992.
Oh, cool.
So I have a nonprofit organization, and I created it for that purpose to sponsor April as Stress Awareness Month, and it's really an open invitation to any health professionals or anyone involved in the stress field to make available educational information during the whole month of April. No restrictions. They don't have to follow any criteria or anything. Just if they have something they want to share with the world about stress, that's what I created the month for, really for other people. Now, in some of the years, I've put out information myself as part of that, and since I'm involved in stress as well, so I just following the same opportunity as everybody else has by once I created the month. And so, and other years I don't. Other years I just sit back and watch other people do it. And every year it's kind of grown. Every year more and more organizations take it on, and whatever they're doing, it's a way to promote what they're doing, or if they just have an educational bent and they want to make some point or debunk some myth about stress. Originally when I created it, it was to help. At least my intention was to help debunk a bunch of the myths that are out there about stress. And so when I put out my information, that's partly what I try to do. And other people have done that as well. But somebody has a yoga studio and they want to use a Stress Awareness Month to invite people to come in and see what they've got, see what they offer. That's great. That's kind of what I had in mind when I created it.
Yeah, so as a doctor, isn't it something like 80% of illness is due to stress, some sort of stress?
Well, we don't really know because it's hard. You can't really prove it for sure. But certainly when people are sick, that's a stress, or when you're even worried about being sick, or you want to, could I get sick in the future? I mean, that can be stressful. So anything around health, if it's your health and you're going to a doctor, there's probably some stress involved. And then, of course, if you have an illness or somebody in your family has an illness, I mean, that's stressful or can be stressful. So there's just lots of different ways that health-related issues play into the overall stress picture. And yeah, so that's how I would answer that. Yes.
Yeah, because stress tends to lower your immune system, which really doesn't help you to be healthy. And
Yeah.
so I think that's probably one of the ways that stress could affect your health.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of evidence and speculation that can lead to things like cancer and autoimmune diseases and a whole bunch of other things. Again, the whole causality of illness is so complex, and we've really only scratched the surface in terms of our modern scientific understanding of what causes what and how come some people get sick and other people don't. So there's a lot of room for further understanding and further clarification of the role that stress plays in various illnesses and diseases, infecting genes, and all this other stuff that's that's kind of percolating now.
Yeah, another thing that I talk to people about is when you're stressed, you're not as creative as you usually are. So when you're trying to get that important project out, the stress just makes the project makes you less efficient in your process.
Yeah,
So
well, there are a
it's
lot of hormones that get secreted when we're worked up,
yeah,
like we're angry or we're anxious or irritated or frustrated or overwhelmed. There's all kinds of things going on in our body that hormones are being circulated, and some of them go up to the brain and affect the thinking parts of the brain so that we don't quite think as clearly. We don't make decisions as clearly. And so that's one of, and in addition to affecting the immune system and other aspects, blood pressure, the cardiovascular system, the digestive system. There's lots of things that those stress hormones have a negative impact on. So, it can affect us in many ways regarding our health, and then there's all the other ways that can affect us, in our relationships, in our job, with our kids, financially. This just keeps rippling out.
yeah, because you're really not at your best when you're stressed. It usually stress brings out probably the worst in people very often.
And it's hard to be happy when you're stressed.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the opposite of happiness. So, the more stressed and irritated and upset and angry we are, in those moments when we're having those feelings and those emotions, we're not feeling terribly happy, and happiness is kind of like pushed to the side. So it detracts from, not only does it detract from our health and our relationships and whatever, it detracts from our overall sense of well-being, our overall sense of ourselves. And some people have an identity that's been polluted by stress. They just believe that they're just destined to be stressed and they can't do anything about it. They're kind of a victim of stress, and they're stuck with it. And I found that's a myth, that most of us can get rid of our stress if we just knew how. I mean, I used to be very stressed in my 20s and 30s and early in my medical career, just like a lot of doctors are. And at that time, I kept struggling to find ways to deal with it, and none of them really were all that effective. And I sort of had concluded that I'm always going to be that way. And I knew a lot of doctors who then through their entire careers, they were stressed considerably, like a lot of other professionals as well. So it looked to me like, well, it's just inevitable that I was going to be that way forever and ever. And then lo and behold, I had this major breakthrough about 40 years ago when I figured out the whole stress game, and I figured out how to finally win it, which I didn't even think was possible. And then the last 40 years of my life, I've had very little anger, very little stress, very little anxiety, stuff that I used to struggle with all the time. And I haven't had it. I was able to figure out how to get rid of it from my life. And a lot of people today still don't think that's possible. They're still stuck in this identity of, well, I'm a human being. That means I have to be stressed and I have to put up with stress. And some even think I need to have stress in order to be successful in my job or my career. And without it, I wouldn't be motivated. Another myth.
Yeah, and some people, I hear people say they work better under stress, and in reality, you don't. You might work faster under stress. If you look back on things, that's probably not your best work, though. So stress can affect you in all ways, like you said.
Yeah, and if, for example, you say, well, I put things off till the very end, and then I get stressed, and then I get in action, and I do what I'm supposed to do. Well, yeah, if you set it up that way, that it'll look like you needed the stress in order to get in action, but you could have gotten in action weeks earlier, made a schedule, created deadlines for yourself, stuck to them, use discipline, do the things that all of us have available to us as human beings, and you could have done probably even a better job than like you said, than what you did, but you set it up in a way where you waited until you got maximally stressed, and then you were like a victim of your stress again to make you move and do the things that you knew you should have done anyway earlier, and you didn't do them. So the whole thing is a myth that you actually need to have the stress in order to be successful or to be motivated or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it seems to me that some people are kind of addicted to stress too. It's like if they don't feel stressed, they feel like something is wrong. So
And
they
that's
find
a,
something to be stressed about.
and that's that identity problem I talked about. They feel like that's part of who they are, and they can't even imagine themselves without stress in their life, without drama in their life, without, crises in their life, because that energizes them and makes them feel alive. And so they've sort of created this narrative that that's who they are. And once you cement that, in your psyche over years and years and years of saying that to yourself over and over again and thinking it to yourself over and over, it becomes part of your reality. It's not real, it's an invented reality, but it feels real, you know?
Yeah, it is your reality, like you said. And
Yeah.
especially these days, it seems as though we just live in a fear-based society. And that fear causes us to do things that we wouldn't normally do. And that just increases stress.
Yeah. Or it causes us to not do things because we're afraid to step out, we're afraid to take chances, we're afraid to do what we really want or we love to do. So we stay stuck in something that we're not thrilled about, because we're afraid of making a change or we're afraid of stepping out and trying something new. So fear gets us both ways. It gets us coming and going,
Yeah,
and it's very, very prevalent today. Absolutely.
yeah, definitely. And it's really how you deal with stress. That is either you can deal with stress in a positive way or a negative way.
Yeah. And the other thing that's very prevalent today, in case you haven't noticed, is anger.
Mm,
So
exactly.
that's one of the things that I'm really focused on now is helping people understand that they can live their lives without a whole lot of anger in it. And that maybe there are occasional times when anger is appropriate, but 90% of the time, it's unnecessary. And that you can actually get rid of your anger very easily. And that's what I'm teaching people to do now. And actually for some, like I said, for some of the stress awareness months, I don't put out information myself personally. This year I decided to do that again. And I'm putting out something to help people with their anger issues. So I have a free handout that I'm giving people that called the best anger elimination method you can find. It's a downloadable PDF. And if you want me to give out the URL, I can, or if you want me to give it to you and you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, why don't you if you can speak it, and then when I'll put it in the comments so
Okay.
that people can see it and go out and do it. Because I know that PDF would be so helpful for so many people, because there is, like you said, there's just so much, because we live in a fear-based society, that fear, like you said, it either causes you to act or not act. So anger is one of the ways that we act when we are in that fear state.
Yeah,
Yeah. So if you want to just speak it now, and I'll make sure it gets into the comments.
sure. It's a simple URL. It's called theangersolution.org, theangersolution.org. And you go there and you put in your name and your email. You'll get an email with a link to get the PDF, and you'll also get on my email list where I send out emails every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I've been doing that for like 12, 13 years now. And I pick a topic related to stress or a topic related to anger, and I break it in 3 pieces and send it out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And a lot of people have been on that list for a long time and enjoy getting those emails. So, and you can always unsubscribe if you get too many emails or you're not interested in doing that.
Yeah, well, I know I am going to sign up for that, because to tell you the truth, every now and then I let that anger get to me. And I would love to have ways to nip it in the butt in that second that it happens.
Yes. And there are ways to do that, and a lot of people don't know that. They think that there's only 2 things. One of the myths we have about anger is you only have 2 choices. You can express it or you can suppress it, and they both can be bad. They both
Mhm.
can cause problems in your life. There's actually a third choice, and that is you can just make your anger disappear by understanding what's causing it in a deeper, more truthful way. And that's the one that I discovered. That's the way I discovered 40 years ago that I didn't even know existed as a possibility. But once I discovered it, I said, wow, this is really powerful. I mean, I can see how I can use this to deal with anger anytime, that it comes up for me, which was frequent in those days. And now it's almost never. But when it does, I use the same process. I understand where it's coming from within me. I know specifically how I'm thinking, specifically how I'm tending to behave. That's causing the anger to either appear in the first place or to keep going longer than it needs to. And I can step in and I can shut that process off because I now know what's causing it that I didn't know until my mid-30s.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you for offering that to us. Is there anything else that you would want to leave people with today?
Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about stress in general and Stress Awareness Month, the one thing I always like to share with people about stress, which is usually a big aha for most people, is I tell them they should stop worrying about stress, stop trying to deal with stress. That's a losing proposition, because stress is just this big umbrella term. It's something. It's a word that we use when we're having problems in life. And if I say to you, I'm stressed, and you say to me, yeah, I'm stressed too. I don't know what problems you're having. You don't know what problems I'm having, but we're both obviously having problems, or we wouldn't have said we were stressed. Now, the problems could be getting angry all the time. It could be feeling overwhelmed, having too many responsibilities, not enough resources or help or support, financial issues, marriage issues, kids issues, health issues. There's this whole big umbrella that we use this term stress to refer to, but nobody ever suffers from stress. Yes, there is that physiologic, stirring up the body's hormones and all that stuff, which is true, but that's coming from problems we're having in life that we haven't resolved. We're not good at dealing with yet. So whenever you think you have stress, you should delete the word stress and just substitute the word problems and say, no, I don't have stress, I'm having problems. And then that'll kind of help you focus on, okay, well, if that's the case, what are the exact problems I'm having? And then instead of smushing them all together and calling it stress, you separate them and say, I'm having this problem, and this problem. Or maybe it's just one big problem that just like COVID that suddenly descends on everybody, but whatever it is, you want to deal with that problem, not this mythical unicorn called stress.
Yeah, and that's what I have my people do too, is just the first thing is just awareness.
Yes.
So instead of saying I'm stressed, I like that to identify what's causing the stress so that you can do something about it. Because
Well, it's better to go, instead of saying, it's better to go, I'm not having stress, I'm having problems, get to the
Right.
problems and say, okay, now what's causing the problem?
Yeah, exactly.
So if it's anger, what's causing the anger? If it's anxiety, what's causing the anxiety? If it's guilt, what's causing the guilt? So instead of saying I'm stressed or I'm upset, now what kind of upset are you? Are you angry upset, anxious upset, overwhelmed upset, having marital difficulty upset? What is it? Get the problem nailed and then get the causes of the problem.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the word stress out of my vocabulary and just look at whatever problem there is, because
Yeah,
that's how you solve it.
It's kind of like when I was practicing medicine and people will come into my office and they say, Doc, I'm sick. Well, I know there's something else going on, and you don't suffer from sickness. There's specific things that you have an upset stomach, you have a headache, you have chest pains, you're tired. What is it? And then so I would have to get a better definition on what they're experiencing, so that I could figure out what the problem was, so then I could then figure out the diagnosis or the potential causes, and then eventually whatever I had to do examination wise, test wise, to kind of hone in on, okay, here's your problem. Now here's what the various fixes could be, or the things you could do, things medical science can do, things alternative medicine can do, things chiropractors could, different kinds of approaches based on whatever the problem is,
Yeah, that's perfect. So I encourage everybody, I will put a link in the comments and go out and get Dr. Mort's PDF and read it and use it and create the life that you would love living. So thank you, Dr. Mort, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And here's to your successful business. Until next time, dream bravely, act boldly, live vibrantly.